silenced or being hurt and abused, and are afraid to do anything differently than what they're caught up in. And we as men want to change that. We want ladies to know that it's safe to be who you are and to set standards and live by those standards. Don't just accept anything and anybody into your circle. And that includes men, your friends, or anybody else. You really got to vet people before you let them in close into your inner circle. And with me, my inner circle is so small. It's like a period, you know. And I just guard myself that way. I just surround myself with people that would help me grow, people that would help me get to the next level, or who I could help grow and help get to the next level. So it's got to be about something. It's got to be about something strategic in order for me to be involved in it. It's not just about hanging out. Those years ago, the Bible says that when you become a man, you got to put away childish things. So at this point, those childish things should have been put away long ago. So I try to live by that every day of my life.
Okay. Mr. Blue, I pose the same question to you.
What men want? I think we think about, or what we want is that beautiful woman, a lot of friends around us that's feeding our ego, you know, that won't tell us right from wrong, that won't step up and push us. Just like the women we choose, you know, we don't learn until we get a little older what type of woman we really want, you know, after getting a bunch of women that just going with the flow instead of pushing you to be a better man. That's what I think.
I feel like women want some, we want a woman to basically support us through everything that we do, no matter what. Like, for me, from what I see, is basically like support. You know, we want them to support everything we do, no matter. A lot of times we get caught up in our egos, and we want them to support everything, no matter how dumb the idea is or what we're doing. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times we want to, you know, be able to make all the money, have like y'all said, have a whole bunch of people around us, you know, and just basically live this life like everything's perfect, and we want them to support that. But a lot of times we make the wrong choices, and in the end, it like ends bad.
Yeah, sometimes we don't find out what we need until after we go through something. Like, you know, once you go through something, then you see who your friends are, who's really in your corner. And a lot of times we don't learn that at an early age. We kind of get that when we're younger and went through something.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, Ronnie.
I personally don't know what men want. I guess it all depends on the individual man. I personally think what I want, because, you know, I'm only me, is first you want a woman who believes in God and knows what it's about, and you want a woman that supports you, who is your partner. You want a woman who's out there doing her thing, trying to make things better for her household and her husband. I personally don't care if a woman makes 10 times more money than me. That's not me. The thing is why she making all that money? Is it for us? And am I still the man in the relationship? That's what makes a good woman to me, and that's what I would want. Somebody I can depend on.
So do you agree? All of you agree with everything I heard each man say that a man wants support. Am I correct?
Yes.
Every one of you men, when I went around the circle, everyone said they want support. The women, they didn't say they want hair weave or makeup, they didn't want support.
Nope.
Not at first, no.
I think it personally. I think it just depends on the woman and the situation. You understand what I'm saying? Because like you said, a girl might have she may make 10 times more money than you. You understand what I'm saying? You might have an idea for her to invest in you in something. Support your idea. You may have a woman that look good, but her attitude is messed up. You understand what I'm saying? It's just different situations. That's why I kind of struggled on what do men want, because a lot of times it does depend on the woman and the situation.
I know being young, I didn't know what I wanted. It was just, I was looking at a female as, I'm looking at her outside appearance. She cute, she can be on my arms, and that was good enough when I was younger. But once you get older and learn better, you do better. And you pick somebody that's going to push you and that's going to make you a better person, like my wife.
That's good. That's good.
So what age do you think that you start to realize as a man?
Sometimes your parents do dictate what you pick up at an early age. Because I know with my parents, all I was taught was to work. So that's all I knew, was to go to work and make some money. But I didn't know how to pick a woman, or what type of woman would be good for me, because I really wasn't taught that. I can go on what my mother did, but still had to get out there and learn, live and learn.
And you also can't put an age limit on maturity.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Because you gotta think it's still people out here that's 31, 32 still doing the same things that people
Right.
that
60, 65.
doing stuff that people was doing at 21, 22.
Mm-hmm. Everybody matured at a different age.
I know what worked for me is I realized that I remember talking to God and saying, God, I'll trust you to bring me a wife. I said, because I realized my picker was broken. All the ones I had picked myself, I wouldn't marry any of them. But when I waited for God, God sent me his absolute best, the one that he had prepared for me, and I for her. And we worked well together. We learned how to become one. We learned how to love one another deeper. And I just thank God for what he's done for me, because I didn't know exactly what I wanted. I remember when my wife and I first got married, she asked me, hey babe, what about me do you want me to change? I said, that's not my call. I said, that call is for God. I said, because the very thing I tell you to change may be the very thing God put in you to change me. And I said, so the flesh always wants the easy way out. He wants everything to agree with him. He wants his comfort, this, that. But God may be using something in that woman to pull something out of you. And you be foolish in trying to resist that, because God wants the best for you. And it's oftentimes through adversity and getting to know people and doing things like that where you really get to know what's in you and what's in your marriage, what's in your spouse when you go through a few things. You don't really get to know who God is on the mountaintop. It's in the valley. When you get to know in the struggle, the push and pull comes. You're dealing with two people that grew up in two totally different households, two totally different backgrounds, and those two are trying to come together and make a life together. So you're gonna run into some issues where y'all bumping heads, y'all running into each other because y'all trying to figure out how this thing works. And if you headstrong about having everything your way, you're gonna continue to bump heads, because just because it's your way and what you're used to doesn't mean it's the only way. It doesn't mean it's the only way, and it don't mean just because something you do things one way, I do things another way. It doesn't mean one thing is wrong and the other is right. It's just that things are different, and we can take a different road and come to the same conclusion sometimes. So it's all about if a man is willing to leave his pride outside and to really go in here and and if the spouses have a goal at out serving one another, out loving one another, how can you go wrong? You know, you can't go wrong like that. When she's trying to outserve me, I'm trying to outserve her. We're both getting the best of each other, and that's a blessing. That's a positive thing. So, if everybody wants their way, you're gonna always run into situations. You're gonna always be on a roller coaster, up and down. You're gonna always be upset and stressed out because nobody was designed to have their way completely and totally. It's all about working together. It's all about coming to a common conclusion with a common goal and working things out together. So if you come in with the right mind state and the right perspective, you can have a beautiful marriage. And that's what my wife and I have built over the years. It didn't start out like that. There's times where she actually, I have this thing, and I grew up. We all in St. Louis know what joning is. We did this for a living. That was our job growing up. And I was good at it. I was good at it. So I know how to hit the right spot and shut the whole thing down. But that's counterproductive in a marriage. You know, I used to do that, you know, because I was tired of going back and forth. I say something that cut deep, but then I realized I'm cutting myself by cutting her. How can I be happy about winning an argument against myself? She is me. The two are one. So then I got the proper perspective, like, wait a minute, man, I am shooting myself in the foot. I need to love this woman. Like the Bible says, love your wife like Christ loved the church, which means lay down your life for her. And you can't go wrong that way. But it takes a man, a mature man, a man of God, a man that's following God, to understand what that really looks like and what that really is. And I'm telling you, you'll have a much better marriage, much better life, much better existence. And your house, I always tell men, it's your job to create a loving atmosphere in your home. When you come home, you should be able to, and you know, we as men, we deal with a whole lot of stuff. We deal with a lot of issues on our job, in traffic, every time, with the kids, with all kinds of stuff just coming at us constantly. And we should be able to come home, and when we hit that door, close that door and leave all that on our side and just have a loving environment. But we have to build that. That ain't just going to automatically be there. It just ain't going to automatically happen. We have to consciously build a loving environment to where everyone that's in that home can come home and have a soft place to lay their head and a soft place to love one another. And that's what that thing, we it's our job to create that atmosphere. It just don't happen because you say I do and because you live with somebody. You got to build that.
That's true, I agree.
That was so good. That was so good. So, transparency moment. Each man at the table, the married men, and getting what you want, what you thought you wanted, what struggle has that brought about in your marriage and with your mate? And how can you, what is the progress you see when you first marry this woman and you marry her and things are, when you're in the honeymoon stage, everything is all good. But what happens when things go bad, and how do you keep the longevity in the marriage?
Okay, what me and my wife have adopted is we call it the reset button, which means whenever we going at it, once we realize what's happening, because the battle ain't against flesh and blood. It's against the enemy. There's an enemy that's set out to destroy marriages. The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And by enemy, I mean Satan himself. He has a hit list, and he has your marriage in the crosshairs. And he want to kill it. He want to steal from it. He want to destroy it. He want to send spouses running from each other, and he wants to see spouses fighting one another. And he knows that if we are fighting one another, we can't fight him. So he'll sit back and he know what buttons to push. He's been studying us all our lives. The spirit realm is even more real than the natural realm, because everything comes out of the spirit realm into the natural realm. So by him knowing what would push that button, he sit back and push that button all the time if you allow him to. And so God has shown me over the years to not fight against my spouse, but to fight with her. And I tell my wife all the time, man, it's me and you against the world. It'll have to be. We're going to put our backs together and go to war. We're going to bang this thing out. We're going to fight together. We're not going to fight each other. So sometimes we forget that, and we go back and forth, and we end up arguing with one another. And then it'll kick in. Wait a minute, this ain't us. We're not supposed to fight each other. Now we understand, we realize and remember who's behind this. Who's behind us fighting and arguing with one another. So we know it's Satan, so we'll say push reset. And when we push reset, that means stop everything right in its tracks, go back and kill the conversation and recognize this ain't about you, it ain't about me. It's about somebody that's trying to destroy this marriage, and we ain't gonna allow it to happen. And we practice that so much and when we needed to, that my 12-year-old son will step in. And me and her forget about it, and we go in there, and he'll step in and say, hold up, Mom, Dad, reset, push reset. And we'll look at each other and look at him and be like, you know what, he's right. But I thank God that he saw us do this, and he's learned that. And we're not so arrogant to think that God won't speak through that child. If God in the Bible, if he can use a donkey, he can use anybody. So he'll speak through that, and we sit up and take notice. We don't sit back and say, well, boy, shut up, stay out of grown folks' business. You ain't got nothing to do with this. We recognize that God is speaking through him, and we stop right then and say, you know what, that's right. And we don't go to bed angry. We straighten this thing out, because at the end of the day, nobody should be treated better than you treat your spouse. The person that's day in and day out working with you side by side and giving up their lives to walk this life with you. And I often say, I remember me and my wife was talking one time, and I said, do you talk to your boss like this? No. Do you talk to the pastor like this? No. I say, so that shows me you can control it. So you choosing not to control it now. That sometimes we as spouses take each other for granted. Oh, she ain't going nowhere. He ain't going nowhere. I can say what I want to say. They ain't going nowhere. They can take it. But if we can treat anybody outside of that house decently and treat them well, we should be able to treat our spouses like that. And we should focus on that and do that at all times. Nobody should be treated better than we treat each other.
Totally agree. That's 100.
Do any of the other men at the table have anything to say in response to Gary's comment?
He kind of covered it all. I know in our marriage, I'm trying to learn how to bite my tongue and to listen, to understand. That's what I pray to God for, to bite my tongue and understand what my wife is saying to me, and for her to understand what I'm saying to her when we going back and forth.
Yes, and I just think that for myself as well, I never saw growing up resolution-based confrontation or arguments. I never saw that. So, as Gary said, when you're fighting against yourself, when you're arguing with your mate, it's a hard thing to develop that mindset if you've never saw it. So, in getting what we want outside of the physical, we have to see the behavior that needs to be mimicked. Whether it's mentorship or getting therapy or whatever, there has to be some transparency to get us to where we're going.
That's true.
So, Gary, what I was thinking while you were speaking, so what does a man need? What is a need? Because I go back to what I said when we opened up the show. I've never heard a man say he doesn't need a woman. So he knows that. He knows that he needs someone else. So what does a man need? And I'm going to open it up to everybody around the table, but our co-host, you have the floor.
Well, what a man needs is, first of all, he needs God. That's first and foremost. Because without God, nothing's possible. Without God, there is no wisdom. Without God, there is no understanding. There is no knowledge. And God, sometimes it's hard as men to relinquish control and give it over to a God that they don't really understand and know whether he has their best interests at heart or not. And I'm here to tell you that God does have our best interests at heart. He created us. He made us in his own image. And many times when there are situations going on, we go to everybody but God. We go to our friends. We go to the psychic hotline. We go to television. We go to movies. We go to celebrities. What they think, that's what I should follow. But God has always showed me, you come to me. I've created this. If you want to learn how to do it right, know how to do it right, come to me. And I love you enough that I'm going to show you how to do this thing. And because he sent us here, every man and woman was sent here with purpose and destiny in them. And one thing I've noticed, and I understand that the richest place on earth isn't the diamond mines, isn't the oil fields, it isn't any of those things. It's the cemetery. Because many have died with gifts and talents still locked up in them that God placed there in order to bless this world, you know. And it's like everything has a purpose. Just like if I had a refrigerator in here, a brand new refrigerator, and a refrigerator, the purpose is to keep things cold, to preserve food, to so that because it wasn't for if food go bad, then we eating that stuff, and then we become salmonella poison. You got E. coli, you got all these things, different diseases that can come, and different viruses that can come from bad food. So the refrigerator have a purpose. But if you don't plug it in to the power, then it will never operate in the purpose that it was designed to operate in. It's just a big paperweight at that point, not doing what it's designed to do. And I don't care how closely you push it to the wall. If you don't plug it into the power, it won't operate in purpose. And that's just like with men and women. I don't care what we do. If we don't plug into the power, which is God, then we won't know what our purpose is. We won't know what destiny is. God sent us, each and every one of us, here with purpose and destiny embedded in us. And the Bible says that before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Which says to me that before I was born, I existed somewhere. If God knew me before he formed me in the womb, that means I existed somewhere, right? So where did I exist before? I lived with him. I existed with him. We all existed with him. And he said, and when we come out of eternity into time through the birth canal, all that is forgotten. But until you plug into the source, he brings that back to the forefront to show you, I told you, I sent you on earth to do this and do that and do the other thing. And it's only when you plug into him is when you find out what that purpose is. So I don't care if you Steve Jobs, what's the Microsoft guy? Bill Gates. I don't care how much money you make at this, if you don't plug into the source and find out what that purpose and destiny is, you really aren't successful. And success in life is leaving this earth empty of all the gifts and talents that God placed in you, and that's for other people to bless this earth. You look at any disease that has been eradicated, polio, how the doctors operate. That's all because God placed that in them, and it came through a man that God sent into the earth. So we all have something to contribute here. And I remember driving down the street one day and I saw some graffiti on the wall. And God was speaking to me then and showing me how it's in every man and woman to make their mark here on earth. To say I've been here, because God said, let us form man in our own